Hello world, it's May 27, 2020 and I just turned 23. Welcome to Chai Time Data Science birthday special AMA episode. This is sort of a special episode, and I do apologize if you come here for interviews with my machine learning heroes because this will be slightly different. And this idea came out of actually a chai time chat at work where I'm really fortunate to be working with Rohan Rao and Parul Pandey, who suggested this idea that for a birthday special, maybe I could invite questions from my heroes that I've been interviewing and just answer them. So this is what it is. To my surprise, in the past 3 or 4 days that I've reached out to a lot of people, I got over 90 questions. It might as well over be 100. I didn't count exactly. And I also really wanted to do a celebration video. My interview series is about to reach the number 100. Publicly, it's not 100 because I release two every week, and the 100th is still to be released, but I thought might as well use this excuse. So here I am with questions from a lot of people that I've been fortunate enough to have interviewed, a lot of people that I have known via this series. And I'll try my best to answer their questions. Hope you enjoy this. And feel free to ask me anything once this goes live. I'm gonna be celebrating my birthday online. Unfortunately we can't go outside, and I hope you can join me in that. So how this is going to be formatted is I'm going to try and narrate out the question, and I know a large number of you tune in through the audio stream, so I would request you to go to the video stream. If you can't tell, I've just come up with a new setup. I'm using a new camera, a new mic, and also a new look. I'll try my best to edit it in a format that allows the questions to be better readable. Another caution, I may speak out these names as if they are my best buddies, but really they are my heroes, and I'm really fortunate that they said yes to this idea. I'm really fortunate that I have gotten to know them. So the first question is by Radek Osmalski, who's been a personal mentor of mine, amazing FastAI classmate. And his question is, once we can safely travel and attend classes in person, are you planning on attending a FastAI course in person in San Francisco? Let me give you a bit of background. This year was supposed to be really exciting, especially this birthday of mine. It was planned. I had planned to celebrate it in California, in San Francisco, along with all of these amazing people that I've known through the internet. Yes, once things get back to normal, the world is back to normal, I would absolutely love to meet my gurus from FastAI. I would absolutely love to meet the community there. It's most definitely. The next question is from Rohan Rao, who's a data scientist at H2O, Kaggle Grandmaster, and also worldwide known Sudoku champion. What are the top enhancements or changes you are working on for CTDS? Anything to look forward to in the near future? Funny story, the branding idea of CTDS actually came from Rohan, thanks to his suggestion. And yes, there are a lot of exciting things that I've been working on. So 3 things. I'm launching a new podcast. Yes, a new podcast called Chai Time Data Science News, ctds.news. You can find another writer that'll go live with this blog post. You can read all about it, but the idea is to give you a short news podcast, ideally in 3 to 5 minutes, always less than 10 minutes, for you to be able to be on top of data science news, basically. Now, if you know me, I'm completely community driven. So if you have any thoughts around that, please let me know. The first episode is supposed to go live somewhere in the first week of June, so in a few days from now, but we'll see how that goes. Secondly, as you might know, I have been subtitling every single one of the interview that goes out. Yes, all of the 2 interviews each week that go out and have been going out since January. And now I'll be starting a blog version release of these also in the first week of June, or probably before that. So you can expect blog releases and also short, interesting parts of the conversation, short clips. Uh, I was going to call it cutting chai shorts from Chai Time Data Science. So really excited about that. I also have a new setup, new camera, new mic, new look. But we'll see how that goes. The Chai Time Data Science story. How did it all begin? So I have been interviewing my heroes of machine learning in a blog format, and I started that in my third year of studies, third year of university. I did almost 25 interviews, but after a point, it start. I started feeling it was getting repetitive. My questions were getting repetitive, and I didn't want to just go out there and waste these amazing people that were giving me their time. Their time. Also, to me, it was feeling like I was asking these heroes of mine to write the blog post for me. At least that's how it would fit into my pipeline. I would send them my questions, they would write the answers back. Another thing that I really wanted to do was I luckily was able to interview many Kaggle grandmasters, many Kaggle masters, and I wanted to apply their advice myself. So this might have happened in parallel, but I focus more on Kaggle. I really focus on Kaggle at least for 6-7 months that I was active on the platform. And right around the last few months of my activity, I actually made it to the final rounds of the Google AI residency program. So I was also freelancing at that time, freelancing because you're not allowed to have a job in college. And I had opted out of college placement. So in India, your college helps you get a job. I had opted out of that very boldly because I didn't see any machine learning related roles. So I was might I thought might as well risk it if I really want to do this. If I'm not confident enough, why dare I say that I'd love to be a part of this field? So I did that. And if you have worked in consulting or freelancing, you know when it rains it pours, and when it doesn't, it's drier than a desert. So the Google AI residency looked like it was going to be my salvation. It was going to be the amazing path out. Everything's gonna pan out. This crazy path, different path that I had set on. And it might not sound crazy to you, but it was quite a bit of challenge for me to convince my parents, which was not that hard after the first few paychecks came in. But it personally, I was hoping that this would connect the dots. No doubt I failed that interview. So there are two things. And first one would be with blogging. I never imagined, even in my wildest estimates, that I'd get to the audience that I could. And all credit goes to Hacker Noon and Rachel Thomas, whose advice I still try to apply. 1 million is a number that song makers might dream of. So that, to me, that was a number that I wouldn't even think of hitting in 10 years. And after hitting that in around 2 years, I wanted to try something else, switch to something else, maybe podcasting, maybe video creation, just content creation in something else, in another media. And secondly, I tried to give back to the community because I realized, hey, I didn't make it to make it to the other side, but what if I can help other people? What if I can help other Indians make it to the other side? So I got really involved with all of the communities online that I could. And I actually started a Chai Time Data Science, or I don't remember if it was just called Chai Time Chat. So I've written a blog post on the Chai Time Data Science show announcement, but I'll try to give you the gist of it. So in DSNet, I opened up a poll and I asked people if they'd like to give me more than 25. If I get more than 25 emoji reactions, I'll open up my calendar, around 50 hours on my calendar, and just try to help people as much as I can. 50 hours for that particular month. In under one day, actually, if I remember correctly, under a few hours, my complete month got booked. Throughout May and June, I ended up doing 3 calls every day with people from the amazing community, the DSNet community. just trying to help them out in any way I can. And what this led to was I became slightly more confident in the way I interact, and this helped me build up the confidence that led up to the podcast. If I were to write something, and I've already written this PyTorch basics in under 4 minutes, that'll go out of date in 6 months, 1 year at best. If it's some other deep learning framework, it'll go out of date in under a month, maybe. So I really enjoy doing these interviews because I feel these advices that have been coming out through this format is really timeless. So I wanted to get back to that. And by this time in my freelance situation, it was pouring. I was almost getting Bay Area payouts in Dehradun, which is a small town in North India. It was quite a good situation that I was in. In under a week, I decided I didn't care that much about money versus about how much value I can provide to the community. That is something that I have valued a lot growing up. And in under a month, I set myself up to launching the podcast, doing 2 releases every week. That's how it all started. And here I am. Has COVID-19 affected CTDS in any way, positively or negatively? I mean, I'm yes and no. I'm really lucky. I'm really fortunate that I get to sit at home, do this podcast, and I consider myself very fortunate. So the stats is lower to where I would have hoped it to be, at least since I've been doing this for the previous 5-6 months continuously, 2 releases every week. The process, not so much. Chai Time has always been remote. CTDS.show has always been a remote podcast. It would happen through video call. The next question is by Vladimir Iglovikov, the computer vision grandmaster. What was your worst or most painful fail or mistake in last year? This goes back to the advice, and personally, at least, I've been really trying hard to apply all of the advice that has been shared through the interviews. Grandmaster Turnaus, that's his name on ODS. He had mentioned, go out, work out a bit, take a bit off from this data science, from this tech world. That's one thing I really failed at. So I also set myself up publicly to being accountable for this. I am overweight by 30 kgs and I intended to lose 15 this year. I'm 10 down that path. Last year I had failed pretty bad. And secondly, professionally speaking, Google was supposed to be the dot connector for me. And I worked really hard preparing for the interview, but I ended up failing it. And that luckily led me to starting this podcast, which wouldn't have happened. But I remember last time exactly this date last year, my birthday, my college had ended. So all of my friends had forgotten about my birthday. Secondly, I was off of social media since I was working almost full time with college in parallel. So I was trying to freelance with college in parallel. So the only people that were wishing me were my LinkedIn connections, a mutual fund where I had invested for tax saving, and my credit card. and I had just received my update of failing the interview. The next question by Rohan is, what is your biggest achievement with respect to CTDS? I think I started this as an effort for the community. I never intended to monetize it. I haven't, and I've been able to keep up with it. And for almost 75 interviews now. The biggest achievement for me is this small value, if you may, that I've been able to provide to the data science community. This small contribution that I was able to make, being the naive 22-year-old unexperienced beginner I am myself am. I am really fortunate that I was able to do so. And if I can mention another one, I was really lucky. I got to know so many people. I got access to their brains. I got access to their times, their unfiltered advice. It's been a dream. Andrei Lukanenko, Artgore, did your podcast have some real influence on you, like developing some skills, finding a different job, and so on? For the job, yes, I'll save that for a later conversation, but that was part of the recognition that I had at H2O. I have been interviewing grandmasters, and a lot of them are at H2O, the company where I am working right now. So, but I'll save that conversation for later. Secondly, one thing that I didn't expect, better speaker, if I may, although I would say better interviewer as well. And secondly, I've been doing 2 releases, Sunday and Thursdays, 9 a.m. Pacific sharp, every week with audio, video, and proper checked subtitles. So it takes a lot of work, and I really learned how to manage my time really, really well. Sebastian Ruder, who's currently at DeepMind, is there any advice you would give to your younger self at the point where you were just about to record your first podcast? I think in hindsight, the dots connect for me, and I learned through the process. But if I could tell myself that you should really streamline the process, I should really nail down the editing, the subtitles, which took me a lot of time initially, because I was really trying to be very sincere, go through the videos, really analyze what I'm doing, try to figure that out. But if I had that streamlined better, I would have been able to ask questions more sincerely. I would have been able to spend more time trying to come up with questions that I'd like to ask better. Alexei Grigorev, who's currently the lead at OLX Group. I'm curious to know, what do you think about ODS community? I see he sees that I am sometimes active there. So I'm really fascinated by the Russian culture, and I had recently written a pretty long message of gratitude in the community. I think Russians, if I may say that, are brutally honest. I got a thumbs up for the interview series from them, so I was able to share my interviews. This podcast is completely driven by the community. I don't monetize it. There are no channels. I just post it in a few communities. I just post it online on Twitter, LinkedIn, and ODS is a community where I post at. It's one of the most active communities where I post at. That's in my opinion one of the biggest achievements also of this series, that I got a thumbs up from ODS. My roommate from college, Shyam Aghara, asks how much money have I made. This is sort of funny. He already knows that. Zero. This has been my service to the community, if I dare say that, and I have absolutely enjoyed it. So money is sort of secondary. Yep, I would like to buy a lot of graphic cards someday in the future when I am competing on Kaggle more. But currently, I don't monetize this, and I don't intend to. Susanna Illich, the founder and director at Machine Learning Tokyo, asks, after talking to so many interesting and brilliant people in ML on your podcast, what were some of your most memorable moments and your biggest personal and ML related takeaways? And a similar question by Hamil Hussain, staff ML engineer at GitHub. The most surprising or profound thing you learned after talking with data scientists in the community? Did you learn anything you didn't expect? So, to me, every single one of these interviews was really a blessing. Every single one of the people that I was able to talk to know via this podcast, I really enjoyed it. That was my biggest personal takeaway, that I was able to connect with so many great minds in this field. I think, and Susanna might agree with me on this, it's a responsibility and it's also a learning experience. If you create a warm and welcoming community and you try to help as many people, I respect the fast A philosophy a lot, making deep learning uncool, and that's I try to contribute to that as much. That's one advice that has echoed throughout the interviews. A lot of these heroes of mine try to contribute to the community. That's why they came on the podcast, even, I believe. Secondly, I thought after a while, when you become a grandmaster, you've done like 50 competitions, you're set. You just take 2 hours, 3 hours to solve a problem. You're good. Sebastian Ruder asks, were there any key traits or commonalities that your interview is mentioned. A personal misconception I had is data scientists can get away with not the best code, and data science doesn't necessarily have a lot of parallels with software engineering. I was quite wrong in that. Quite a few number of people have advised that if you are a good data scientist, you should also focus on writing better code. And I'm still learning both of these things. I'm still in the process of learning them. The second advice was don't just learn, implement. My favorite blog that I have written, my own personal writing, is how not to do fast. And there I talk about where you fall into the loop of infinite learning and actually never implement something. So implement stuff, kaggle a lot, and share what you learn via blog posts, maybe even podcasts or videos. There were a lot of Kagglers in the podcast. They love Kaggle, but are there some common problems with Kaggle or some other criticism? I want to throw a disclaimer out there. I'm really a Kaggle noob. I am a 3x expert, hoping to be a 3x master by the end of year, which doesn't mean I'll be a master in any sense. I'm just 2 or 3 years into my ML journey, even less for Kaggle. But if I dare say a few words, I think some people fall into the trap of gamification, just gamification, where they forget that uh, your material can receive upwards if you really create some good materials, if you remain genuine. And this isn't pointed towards any hero that I've interviewed. It's just an issue, and it's common when you gamify things, right? It's common anywhere. We've also seen it in world sports, and sometimes people aren't cautious about putting the best code out there on Kaggle, or at least for their internal solutions. So that's one thing, or one criticism, if any, that I could come up with. Dmitry Gordev, the lion from Kaggle Team Zoo, asks, what is the most controversial topic you came across while talking to different ML practitioners? I think people always don't see eye to eye when it comes to Kaggle. I respect the platform a lot. I'm a fan of it. I'll hopefully keep interviewing more grandmasters, more masters, and hopefully also try to win. Well, those are big words. Maybe medal in a few competitions, but we'll see. So I think Kaggle is one of the controversial topics. Many people don't see eye to eye on it. What was the most awkward moment during an interview? There have been many. I think the one that stands out a lot is when I was interviewing the retired construction worker Dieter, Grandmaster Dieter Christoph Henkel. So I was staying in a hostel to save expenses, and we had the hostel staff come in and clean the rooms every day. And those are loud people. That's pretty common in India. If you're doing it from another country, and I'm interviewing, I'm in the middle of the call, I'm talking to Dieter, and the staff comes in and they're really screaming on the top of their voice. So I had to actually ask Christoph to take a pause so that I could go talk to them and ask them to leave. We had a good laugh out of it though. Alex, the radiologist from FastAI, Kaggle winner, asks, what is the most embarrassing question that you ask during your podcast and blogs? The most embarrassing one to me is, I try to think a lot about and talk a lot about diversity and inclusion. And that has also been one of the biggest failures of Chai Time, if I may, that I have, even though I would like to see the women representation in tech grow a lot, I would like to contribute to that in some way. I have actually propagated the bias a lot by just having the same proportion in numbers of the people that I have interviewed. It might be slightly better than some tech communities, if I dare say that, but inviting someone on the podcast and asking them what should we do for Women DS, women in machine learning and data science. And at the same time, I'm contributing to this bias. I'm embarrassed by that, honestly speaking. Parul Pandey, one of the best blog writers I've known, and also at the time of recording, she's a master on Kaggle. Her question is, name your favorite grandmaster from each of the Kaggle category who have been on CTDS. You cannot repeat the names. Wow, this is really difficult because every single one of the conversations, and I really mean it when I say it, was with a hero of mine. But if I have to pick for competitions, Jiba, Gilberto, Colonels SRK, Sudlai Rajkumar, and discussions CPMP, Jean-Francois Pouget. Yuri Khashnitsky, leader of MLCourse.ai. Given that you've interviewed so many people, can you pick up a couple of funny anecdotal stories that you enjoyed the most? Yes, retiring from construction and becoming Kaggle Triple Grandmaster. I don't know how Dieter did it, but it's it's something out of the world. Sutlai Rajkumar, SRK on Kaggle Grandmaster. He asks, if you are on the other side of the chair in CTDS, whom would you like to see as the interviewer? Wow, this is a tough answer because I don't think I am qualified in any way to share any data science advice. If I am to pick the person from the field of AI, broadly speaking, Lex Fridman. If outside of it, Joe Rogan. And what is your favorite data science podcast or channel? Lex Fridman's Artificial Intelligence podcast. When you start out in any journey, the imposter syndrome and some envy is prone to kick in. I'll be honest, it's quite. I would always look up at Lex's podcast and think this person is getting millions of views and downloads to their podcast, and I'm just getting a few hundred now. Well, might be 1,000 around that number, but later when the naive mind of my 22-year-old self settled down, and I've almost watched all of his. It's been my favorite podcast, and I'm really grateful that I don't think I'll be ever capable of asking questions in such a capacity of be able to look at the broader picture, or I'm not there yet. That's one thing where Lex has been doing a phenomenal job. I think everyone knows that already, but being a very technical person yourself and then being able to appreciate philosophy in such a capacity, I don't know of anyone else that has been able to do it in AI. Kaggle legend Jiba Gilberto asks, is it possible? And I haven't altered the questions that make me look slightly better because, I think people have been very kind with their questions, but I'll just read them as is. Is it possible at the same time to work with data science, create content, play Kaggle, maintain a blog, interview data science heroes, and play video games? What is your trick to balancing all activities? Those are very kind words from him. In my very honest with you, I think I've been doing a poor job across all of these. I've been trying my best, but struggling to balance all of these. Secondly, I'm 23-year-old with almost no responsibilities, and almost the entirety of my day I spend next to a computer. My screen time, at least with these days, is, or even on non-pandemic days, is usually around 12 hours. Now it's around 16 to 22 hours, depending on. So I don't have a life outside of this, if I may. I really enjoy it. I love the process. And the love, the support I have received from the community, I don't know of a bigger propeller than that. And a similar question by Shivam Bansal, Colonel's legend, Kaggle Colonel's legend, and Grandmaster. What is your biggest motivation and what keeps you motivated throughout the day and night? I am fascinated by machine learning, and I mean that in the most sincerest sense. I mean that in the truest. sense. So just my passion for the field and how much I value, and I'm really lucky to be able to do the things I love. So I'm the luckiest person, right? I am fortunate enough to be able to do that in a personal space also, and my personal and professional boundaries blur a lot. And I have received the greatest support from the community. I don't know of a bigger propeller. Nalini, one of my mentors and fellow students from Fast, and Tanya, she goes by Blonde on Kaggle, and Traveling Tati. Nalini asks, what is one value that defines you, the one that will never change no matter what? And the question by Tanya, which is a similar one, is if you had to describe yourself with one word, what will it be? One word, sincere, I would say. One value that won't change for me is if I set my mind to do one thing, I'll remain sincere to it in the truest of sense. I'll try my best to do it. I have a okay record of doing it with CTDS this year. 2 interviews each week, audio, video, subtitles. Jason Antich, Fast AI hero and creator of Deoldify, asks, every time I've interacted with you, you seem to be the happiest person I've ever met. What's your secret? And you need to understand, Jason, I'm 22. I'm doing what I love, and I get to talk to Jason Antich. What else could I ask for? What was it? I don't know how to answer that. But Dimitri Gordev dot asks, who inspires you, and how did it change since you started your channel, the podcast? Ooh, this one had actually created an interesting controversy for me. I was side cornered by a few grandmasters. Hey, you call every single one of us your hero. Who's your biggest hero? And if I'm to say that my biggest inspiration would be my parents, my biggest heroes would be my parents. If I'm to pick my top heroes, but honestly, every single one of the person in this field that I really look up to and have interviewed inspires me a lot. How it has changed is it has only grown my respect and admiration for these people. So the 100 podcast is also coming up, and Sebastian Ruder knows that. How have your questions and the way you ask them changed from your first podcast to 100? So one thing I've been really cautious of is whenever I interview someone, and anyone in such a respectable capacity or in a such high achieving capacity. So I don't like to start with questions asking, why don't you tell me a bit about yourself? Why don't you do this? Why don't you? I don't like the other person to do my work. I like to ask specific questions, and I think I've improved a bit upon that. Now I try to spend a lot more time, much more than earlier, sometimes even 4 or 5 days, just trying to think of questions that I'd like to ask. Oh, this is a tricky one. Karthik from DSNet, one of my heroes from DSNet community, asks, you invest a lot of time preparing these interviews. Do you have days when you get the feeling that this could be better spent somewhere else? Personally, career wise, learning something new or Kaggle? Not gonna lie, yes, I would love to Kaggle more. My excuse is I'm young. If I may, I'm 1 year older now, but I really adhere to the advice that I can mess up as much until at least till I'm 30. So that's why I started the podcast. That's why I went full blown into it. I'm neither a good Kagler or a programmer, but I love what I do. Maybe it's not the best decision. I don't know if I fail with this. Philip Singer, another lion from the Kaggle Team Zoo. What is your favorite? Asks, what is your favorite quote from your interviews? Quote also comes from him, and this is one question that I think this is one topic that a lot of people would be getting questions around. And this is a comment on if you're asking questions, how should I do this? How should I do this? How should I do X with respect to FastAI? And his answer is, if people are asking the questions, or I don't know how to find homework, I don't know what I should be doing, what they're really saying, or what they might be saying is, they have a motivation problem. So, and I do relate to this when people ask, how should I get started to on Kaggle? Should I do Kaggle? They maybe have a motivation problem where they don't feel like the approach would be effective. And to that, Radek says that probably the first point to overcome this is actually, this is the reality of life. You want to learn anything, you need to sit in front of a computer for hours, spend time doing things that seem basic, but they're actually not basic. That's part of the learning curve, and that is hard work, really. Learning something via the top-down approach, something that Radek and I really respect. What do you enjoy most about your role at H2O? Did you notice I switched to drinking H2O from chai? Or you're not watching the video? You should. So H2O, there's so many things. It's difficult to articulate almost. But to the best of my knowledge, we call ourselves makers. And to the best of my knowledge, I am the youngest maker. There are a lot of grandmasters at this company, Kaggle grandmasters, which to me at least are the smartest people that I know of in the data science world that I am attracted to. I work in the content team right now because all of this comes under content. And everyone, I'd be lying if I didn't mention that everyone around is super smart, super experienced, really intelligent people all around, and they're very warm, they're very welcoming. It's this amazing environment, and I get to learn from every single person I speak to, and it's also I get to do CTDS show, not new CTDS show, Chai Time Data Science show, as part of my work. I'm really lucky. I enjoy interviewing grandmasters. Quite a few of them are at S2, and I'm lucky I get to do that at work. But also, I'm just fresh out of college. This is my first job. Even though I would funnily joke about that, I have 3 years of experience in consulting, 2 or 3 years. I don't exactly remember, but um, this is and I've written a blog post on it. But this is, as I mentioned, I'm a community taught ML engineer, and this is a dream job that I couldn't even dream of. To be in this position in India, where machine learning isn't at its peak compared to, let's say, Silicon Valley or Canada, being able to learn so much directly, indirectly, is a blessing. I think there's a lot of independence around what you can do at work. If you come up with a good idea, hey, I want to try this. Usually, the first question isn't why, as you might expect it. It's, oh, that's a great idea. Here's what I think. How can I help? Let me know if you need anything, even if it may or may not be related to work. And S2 is a company that also really respects uh, democratizing AI. That's the motto. But these are also my interpretations, so to speak. But they respect community work a lot, and I'm allowed to do that also sometimes at work. So that's a dream for me, honestly. The next question is by one of the greatest statisticians, Russ Wolfinger. India has a very rich and strong tradition in stats and maths. Are young data scientists in India effectively taking advantage of this education, mentorship, and early career paths? India is one place where we have a lot of competition. There, I think, when I was appearing for my bachelor's 4 years ago, 5 years ago, 15 lakh people were just writing the entrance test. So I think that's an advantage, that Indians, we're not afraid of competition. I think the industry is growing. H2 has offices. People like SRK, the community is really fortunate to have such mentors, if I may say so. And there's a lot of numbers, there's also quite a bit of noise there. But I think anyone who's sincere, be they let them be in any part of the world, you just need an internet for data science, in my opinion. So not to be biased, but yes, India is using the opportunity quite well, I think. Victor San, scientist at Hugging Face. Machine learning scientists and engineers have two different jobs, even though they have overlapping components. Uh, what are the challenges that ML engineers face and scientists often underestimate? Conversely, challenges that scientists face that engineers underestimate. So I'd like to start my answer by saying that I am neither. Uh, so my answer will be based on my understanding, and I respect both roles a lot. I think science is about creating, discovering, doing research, coming up with novel ideas. And similarly, for engineering, it's about creating these pipelines, solving engineering constraints. And that is one challenge that some scientists might underestimate. Engineers who underestimate science, there's a joke on Twitter that uh, there's not a lot of changes in SOTA architectures if you compare them sometimes. And I think creating these architectures is also a bit of discovering new things in this field. In my opinion, is an amazing feat. The question by Radek, in double quotes, when I referring to him, when I was embarking on my journey to learn to code and then to do machine learning, I had preconceptions about both of these activities that turned out to be completely wrong. From your deep learning journey, what were some ideas you held initially that turned out to be wrong? Two things: how difficult it will be and how easy it will be. Two very contradictory answers. So how difficult it will be, I thought it will take me, and that's one of the reasons why I started. I asked my college mentors, what do you think of machine learning? They told me, you need a master's, you need a PhD, and then you should think of this topic. Being the rebel I was, I took up the challenge. And that was a misconception I carried with me, that this is a difficult field. Then there's also an underestimation. If I spend 6 months on Kaggle, I can become an expert, or dare I say master. That's also a big underestimation. A person approaches you and asks, Sayyam, I have been learning to code for 6 months, now taking online courses. How long do you think before I become employable? What other skills apart from being able to write to code should I develop that are necessary? So I really look up to FastAI in the sense that it empowers a lot of people to break into the field, and I know many of my peers who have been able to break into the field even though they started to code just a few months ago. How do you bring in your domain knowledge, whatever background you have? So, a person might not be a great coder or a great ML engineer, but they would have this strong background in business or a specific domain that they can easily bridge into ML and apply to their field. So if they can leverage that background, I think months is a bad measure. They should. It's easy to do that with tools like FastAI. But other skills that are necessary is you also need to communicate what you have learned. Try dropping those tech heavy jargons in business meetings. It's a challenge to get your point across, and that's where I think blogging comes into the picture also. Another idea that I think Radek and I have learned from FastAI. That's where you should learn to communicate your ideas. So I would say also communicating your ideas, and it's an iterative process. You won't become an ML engineer when you get the role, right? You are always chasing the target. You're always becoming better. Robert Bracco, my friend and fellow FastAI student. I'd love to hear more about your personal life outside of ML. Where did you grow up? What was it like? What's your family like? Oh boy, it's a straightforward answer. I don't have much life outside of ML. I don't have a life outside of ML data science. Uh, I grew up in a small town in North India, Dehradun. which is a really beautiful valley. It's surrounded by the Himalayas, and I always had this. I think my love of chai came from how much we enjoy chai in the mountains, or also how much I would use it as an excuse that I really need chai to be able to study, and then I'd just waste time drinking chai. So that that might be a factor. But I really, it was a lovely childhood. I think I really enjoyed growing up. I wish I had internet access earlier than I did. I only got to it around 2015 or 16. Good internet access. My family is a nuclear family. My mother and father. Uh, it's more of a friendship than family. I think me and my father troll each other pretty much every day. Although I would say his meme and trolling game has gone up a lot. But yeah, needless to say, and I can't overstate this. I wouldn't be where I am in my life if it wasn't for my parents. If it wasn't by my parents also. Favorite non-computer related activity? I would go out on a bike ride every evening to a hilltop or a hill range near my house. Take a bike ride for 2 or 3 hours in the evening sometimes, and just find a quiet corner and sit down there, have chai. The same question also by Inversion is Inversion, the first discussions grandmaster and data scientist at Kaggle. What do you like to do for fun when you're not doing data science? I would say yes. Just absorbing the mountains and taking a slow motorbike ride. Arno Candle, CTO at H2O, asks, what advice would you give your parents to tell you when you were 10, 15, and 20? Buy me more games? Buy me an Xbox? You should have bought me that Xbox when I was 12. I needed a faster internet. I don't know. But honestly, I think I am not the best child. I annoy my parents a lot. I have been, I still do to this date. Uh, they did a great job at bringing me up, much better than I would have done. And I don't think I would change anything about that. I really enjoyed. Did you watch a lot of TV and play a lot of video games as a child? Do you think it helped? Yes. To every single youngster watching this video, go out there, play as many games. It's a growing industry. You'll make a lot of money. I did play a lot of games. And then I stopped when I got into work in college. That is because I didn't have time. And I would echo Grandmaster Marius Casanova's advice or words here. If you look at data science or Kaggle like a game, it becomes easier. Rohan asks, I heard you had some very entertaining incidents in college. True story. Which is your most memorable one? I could be very critical of university, and that I am to anyone that follows my rants on Twitter. I have been. But it's my birthday, so I'm trying to bring some positivity. I think the most memorable incident to me in the positive sense was when I started, or maybe when I got my first paycheck in, I think, sophomore or the year after that. The fact that I could make money, which wasn't a goal, but it was reassuring for sure while embarking in this field, which led me to starting a company as well. You know, the best experiences in life aren't free, they are business expensed. And me and my co-founder, my friend Rishi, we found a way. We realized that in India, you can have a startup and earn tax free as long as you are under certain thresholds. Grandmaster Martin, heads or tails, first Colonel's Grandmaster asks, how did becoming part of Kaggle or ML community change your life or your outlook on life? I like to call myself a community taught engineer, and I think it's been the most eye-opening experience for me, and also realizing the fact that it's a lifelong learning. Even grandmasters that are in the top 10 spend a lot of time on the platform. They learn a lot every day. That was my outlook. And also, what I learned from Kaggle is you need to move fast, you need to code fast, and you need to submit even faster. Akash NS from Jovian ML and DSNet, I think they're also running an active course right now. So allow me to drop a plug for an amazing course on PyTorch that they are running right now. Do check it out. What is your advice for students and fresh graduates who are interested in data science but are feeling uncertain about jobs and internships due to the pandemic? I'd say I never got into data science just because of a job. So if, you know, I see a lot of people mentioning that they are passionate about this field. I'm sure they are. But if you're really passionate, will you continue doing it if you're not paid? Focus, and I'm assuming you have the time since you're seeking work. Building projects, utilize this time. Anthony Goldblum, CEO of Kaggle, asks, what do you find most exciting about data science and machine learning? I think to me, what appeals the most is, and I think also something that Kaggle really appeals to is what machine learning can enable. It's with just a bit of creativity, you can enable so much. You can empower so many different fields. You can bring it to so many applications. And as humans, we are known to be creative. We don't like the repetitive processes. I don't enjoy video editing at all. And I don't think it's just automation, but being able to automate those parts and focus on the bigger questions, focus on solving bigger problems, being a creative thinker, being more creative is what I really like about, or I find exciting about data science or machine learning, broadly speaking. Also, as a kid, I would really have is that I would have a personal assistant like Jarvis, like Iron Man. What was the biggest surprise or strange thing you encountered in data science? Biggest surprise was how much effort you need to keep putting in, and the contradictory statement to that is that someone who's very new to the field, given that how fast the field really moves, and if they invest just a few months of time, can be at the top of the field, or can produce really good contributions to the field. And that's one thing I picked from Fast AI. I really believe in that. I really believe in making deep learning or AI uncool. Parul Pandey asks, apart from Fast AI, including Jeremy and Rachel, who had a profound effect on your data science career? I would say these interviews definitely have been a great education for me. And I like to call myself a community taught ML engineer. Anything I've learned is via the amazing people I've known through just the internet. So any community that I've interacted in, the Kaggle community, the Fast AI community. So there's so many people who have had an impact on my journey, who have been very kind to me with their time, that it'll be unfair to pick one or two. I really love Fast AI because that was the starting point of the chain reaction, which is what led me to this. Helena Siren, my favorite GAN artist. I think she's one of the best AI artists. If you were to have one extra hour a day, what skill would you like to learn or master? And Arno also asks, if you had 1 month of free time to spend 100% on one thing, what would it be? I would say Kaggle, if I'm to just pick one thing, but I might fall into the trap of doing more interviews as I have been. I really want to become a better engineer with time, but for now, enjoy this process a lot. So I've been that's been my excuse. If I have to pick something outside the field, creating something artistic. Arno also asks, when will you start competing seriously at Kaggle? And so this is sort of my bathroom speech practice of receiving my award of becoming a triple master. I think if I ever become a triple master on Kaggle, uh, I'll be a H2O taught master, because it's been such a big motivation for me. I really hope to get back to Kaggle, but for now, I think I have a good momentum with the series, so that's why I've been doing it. I do aim to become a triple master this year on Kaggle, so hopefully this year. And that's also my answer to Christoph Henkel, the retired construction worker, triple grandmaster, Dieter. His question: what's the goal for next year? I think, but goal with respect to machine learning would be become a triple master for this year. Maybe move towards grandmastery in one tier. Big words coming out of a small mouth. And outside of that, lose some weight, become more fit, which I haven't been lately. Goku Mohandas asks, you just turning 23, and remember I haven't edited the questions because people have been kind with their words, so I'm just reading them out without change. You're just turning 23 and you're already given so much to the community. What are the top 2 to 3 themes of things that you would like to continue contributing to the community? Thank you for the kind words. I don't think I've contributed a lot. I wish I do more. I would like to further spread the fast AI mission, which is making deep learning uncool. And how I'd be able to do that outside of these interviews would be more Kaggle related content. So I haven't created much content around code recently. I'd like to do that. Spread knowledge about AI in different communities. I don't believe in gatekeeping. I would like to break down gatekeeping barriers. And if I can do that in any capacity, either by spreading knowledge or by helping people, either in a direct or in a broadcasted fashion, I would love to do that more with time. The next question is from a mentor and hero of mine from FastAI community, even Aldridge. His question is, if you could use deep learning to solve any problem, what would it be and why? Right now, find a vaccine to end this pandemic. Otherwise, I think solving intelligence, creating AGI would be an answer. And this is one statement that I've become interested via Lex Friedman's podcast. It's like describing an iOS app to someone in the 1970s is what looking at AGI today is like. So I'm on the side of our robot overlords, since this will be a video. Team robots, go. Go team robots. But that's one big problem I'd like to solve. Another question by Dimitro Mushkin is, if you could go back in the past using a time machine to change the history of AI, what would you change? I'd like to eliminate the AI winters that had happened due to misbeliefs. But the researchers kept working nevertheless, the people that believe in the field. So who knows how the field would have been if more researchers had been contributing to it. The next question by Jeremy Harris at Sharpest Minds. Data science has always been an unusually open field with community spirit, with a great community spirit. And that's helped a lot of people break in. How can new data scientists connect with the community now that lockdowns have taken away meetups and chance encounters? I could state my example here. I've only interacted with the data science community online. I've never had a community in person. I was going to meet one in San Francisco this year. And I think since everyone is on the internet, everyone is on Slack, join any community Slack today, attend any webinar online, try to interact with the person, and then just reach out to them, jump on a call. I don't see any difference in how well you'd be able to connect with them via that. It, of course, wouldn't be as nice as meeting people in person, which I haven't ever yet. I mean, I do get to meet grandmasters at work, which is a big perk of working at S2O, but yeah, use the internet. The next question is by ML Warner. His question is, for indie researchers, it's hard to contribute to ML development on real world datasets due to computing needs. And in light of AutoML Zero by Real Atel, which shows it's feasible to invent algorithms from scratch, will it be difficult for indie researchers to contribute to the development of machine learning on toy datasets? How has the role of ML researcher changed over the past 10 years? And what do you think will happen in the following 10 years? I'd like to echo Jeremy Howard's thoughts there. I think research has now become from just being academia to more application based, more engineering based. And I think, as underqualified as I am to make a guess on that, that will happen even more so. With AutoML, I think there are many great tools out there, but research is also about creating amazing algorithms, creating interesting ways of initializing your networks, interesting architectures that create breakthroughs. So if you are a researcher who's from a different background, uh, maybe AutoML will allow you to automate the boring parts and focus on even a bigger picture, come up with even more interesting ideas. That's my hope. The next question is by two people, Parul and Nirant. Nirant is working on machine learning and NLP at Whirlloop.ai. What would you do differently if you were to start your professional journey today? I would just take one course and only one course, that is Fast.ai, and then jump onto Kaggle right away. Or maybe jump onto Kaggle while doing the course, even like not wait to complete the course. Rohan asks, what is the most you like about tea? Tea is an experience. I'm trying to come up with a smart answer, philosophical answer, but I think my love for mountains and chai comes from where I've grown up, Dehradun, and it's just a feeling that I carry. So that's one part of my culture that I bring, and I have now also brought to the internet via the podcast and a new podcast that I just launched. If there is an opportunity to interview someone not from data science world, whom will you pick? MKBHD, Marcus Brownlee, maybe him, or maybe Christopher Nolan. Uh, Interstellar is my favorite movie of all time. Zachary Mueller. Zachary Mueller. His question is blue pill or red pill? I'd like the unpleasant truth. I'd like to, if I can. Question: what's your favorite feature in FastAI? And this is a question by Sylvain. If I were to pick a feature from the library, the layered API is really true to the FastAI philosophy, which is the top-down learning approach, right? So depending on where you are in your top-down journey, if you're just starting out, you can just use the high-level API, which is 5 lines of code. Wouldn't take you very far if you're trying to, let's say, compete on Kaggle. If you're trying to pick up a more, if you're open to a bigger challenge, the mid-level API. So just the design philosophy, I would say, behind the framework would be my favorite feature. And if I were to really pick one, and when you try to move away from FastAI, then you realize that it's quite a big problem solver, the one cycle policy. And the dot fit one cycle in FastAI would be my favorite feature if I'm to pick one single function, so to speak. And the last question, which is quite a difficult one, is by Sebastian Ruder. You have interviewed so many successful and celebrated data scientists and researchers. What do you think of the world successful? Who's the first person that comes to mind? I think every single one of the person that I have interviewed is highly successful in this field. But if I'm to pick one, I'll draw a personality that I would really look up to, and that'll be the personality that FastAI is trying to empower, and they have been, which is someone from outside of the field who's just trying ML out of happiness, trying to apply it, and they haven't maybe even coded ever in their life, and they are able to bring in an application of machine learning to their field. So I remember this example from the community where a farmer who had never coded, I believe, was able to apply deep learning at their farm, as much as it's great to hear of very successful people, I think anyone who's been able to bring this challenging field, apply it successfully, and derives happiness out of it, really enjoys the process, is successful. So, uh, anyone who contributes to the field or applies machine learning in an effective way, and the uncooler or the outsider they are to computer science, uh, that's one thing that I would really respect. I think that's why I really also look up to Jeremy Howard, since we all think of university as something that sets your career path, and he's the only, at least the only greatest researcher I know who has contributed to machine learning and studied philosophy at university. So more people like him. And thank you for tuning in. Thank you for making it to the end of this podcast, my special birthday celebration one. And I'm really grateful to everyone that sent their questions to me. And I hope you enjoyed this different episode on the series. I'll see you next episode with another interview with a machine learning hero. Take care and stay safe. If you like the show, please subscribe and tune in each week to Chai Time Data Science.